Coming up on Smart Tech today, Jason Howell is here joining me for this week's episode, and we have a lot to talk about. We kick the show off by talking about Mesh for Microsoft Teams. It's the enterprise metaverse. Then we talk about lots of robots. First, Facebook making some touchy-feely bots. Miso Robotics making some bots that can help cook food in fast food restaurants. And the University of Adelaide building a multi-limbed robot for climbing through caves. If that sounds creepy, I completely understand, but it's actually pretty cool. Then we talk about robotic driving. It's driverless robotaxis in San Francisco. Other car stuff, including Apple detecting car crashes and dialing 911 on future iPhones, plus so much more. We've got a lot to cover on this episode of Smart Tech Today, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by userway.org. Userway ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, dynamic, and sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent, and I am joined today by someone who might be familiar to you, certainly familiar to me. It's Jason Howell. Hello, Jason.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you, Micah. On this show, we already did one show together. Now it's time for our second.
It is the Jason and Micah hours here on Twit. And we've got some smart tech news to talk about. So I thought I'd kick things off today. Microsoft held its Ignite conference, or I guess is holding its Ignite conference. And with that came a whole bunch of announcements. But one of the things that really stuck out, and in fact, when I was talking to Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott yesterday on Windows Weekly, one of the things that they said is like this was the flashy thing that was supposed to kind of be picked up by the press more so than other announcements that took place there. It's something called Microsoft Mesh for Teams. And Mesh for Teams is a mixed reality platform for Teams. It is Microsoft's kind of enterprise version of the metaverse. So what's kind of interesting about this story, first and foremost, is Facebook came onto the stage at its Connect conference and talked about what was next for the company itself. It's now called Meta. What its plans were in trying to sort of stake a claim in the metaverse and be a way for people to gather together in mixed reality and virtual spaces. And one of the things that Facebook said, whether this is true or not, one of the things that Facebook said is that it doesn't want to own the metaverse. I mean, it did name itself Meta, so that's a little bit kind of confusing, but it says it doesn't want to own the metaverse. It just wants to be a part of it and to facilitate it. And so to have Microsoft come in after this and say, hey, we want to be a place for the enterprise to get together. And I don't mean the Star Trek ship, but for the enterprise to get together in a virtual space and be able to communicate. This is something I'm not surprised to see, and I think a lot of people weren't surprised to see. I think the thing that stood out was Microsoft talking more about the metaverse in general and how quickly this is becoming a thing that everybody's going to start hearing about more and more. They want you to be able to communicate with other people using your digital avatar, whether you're using an AR headset, a VR headset, or if you've just got a webcam that can track your facial movements and have your virtual avatar displayed on the camera. And Paul Thurrott had just gotten back from Paris and had some other things. So he was a little bit jet lagged, and he was saying, honestly, I wish that I was coming to the show right now as a virtual avatar. And it made me think about the times where I felt like, oh man, I wish I didn't have to be in front of the camera physically, and instead could have an avatar that stood in for me. Maybe during meetings or some, those kinds of situations where you don't necessarily feel like you have to be on, but you're still showing up and showing that you're engaged without that, breaking into the privacy implications. So yeah, I'm curious your thoughts kind of where Microsoft is coming in from the enterprise side of things, your skepticism, maybe your optimism, and everything in between. I'm curious to hear what you thought about this when it came out.
I mean, I feel like in a very short period of time, the term metaverse has become this thing that now suddenly every company feels it needs to get in on that business somehow, or show how they're thinking about the future, via the metaverse, which is not to detract anything from the potential of the metaverse. I don't even know what the actual potential of the metaverse is, or if it's just a flash in the pan, kind of like, hot topic that everybody's talking about now that we're going to forget about in 2 years. But when I was reading through this, at first I was thinking about the concept of like, okay, so I'm sitting in front of my laptop and I'm going to join this work meeting, and I don't feel like putting on my video, so I'm going to let an avatar sit in for me. That's like, at first I was skeptical. I was like, oh, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, I'm already there. Why wouldn't I put that on? I suppose there could be any number of reasons why someone would opt to have an avatar in place for them. But what occurs to me about that is that the enterprise itself, meaning the company itself that is holding this meeting, would have to be open to the concept that their employees are showing up not necessarily entirely as themselves, right? Because we already we've already seen examples of people getting pushback because they changed their background or whatever. It's like they choose to put a different background than their real background on, and there's pushback for that, let alone basically taking like a Bitmoji and having that stand in as you. Like, I don't know. I could see a lot of companies not being very cool with that, but maybe I'm not forward thinking enough, for the future. But in my opinion, like the metaverse in the enterprise, there's just a disconnect there that I'm just not quite, I guess I don't understand enough about it to feel like super optimistic that this is anything we're going to see anytime soon with any sort of regularity.
Yeah, I do think it's still a ways out for sure. And I agree with you that there is likely to be some kind of holdouts. I was just thinking, though, about different, like for me, I have long curly hair on top of my head, and due to the nature of my mixed race, it is a very complicated pile of follicles to deal with. And so there are times when my hair is just an absolute mess and I need to hop on a call. And right now my avatar is putting a hat over my head. But with this long hair, like it sometimes is sticking out of the side of the hat, just to not have to stress about that at all, just popping up an avatar in place. Because, I mean, let's be real. I know that nobody at the company that we work for is actually going, oh my God, that disheveled human being, why would he did it? I'm not, there's no real concern of that, but there is just that low-level anxiety of going like, I don't like how I look right now. I want to be a part of this meeting, but not have to deal with it. And we can't discount the pervasive sexism, racism, and other isms that are also a part of corporate life, and how that plays a role in this conversation, and how maybe folks who are disenfranchised in these ways would benefit from having an always on, and by on I mean like ready to go on camera avatar could be helpful. And that could benefit them in this conversation. Again, if these companies are on board with letting this happen.
And what are the rules around that too? Because when it comes to our avatars in the experiences that I've seen, let's say Roblox, let's say Rec Room, we're changing our avatars all the time, right? And our avatars might not necessarily represent a feature to feature similarity between what we look like in real life versus what we look like in the avatar in this like digitally created world. So do companies then have rules like, we can't have anything distracting. We don't want you looking any different. Yeah, we don't want you looking any different than the way you look in real life because that's distracting or whatever. I'd be curious to see if there end up being rules around that too. That seems like a can of worms to open up as well. But I totally agree. We should we should have the freedom and the ability to show up in the way that we feel most comfortable in this world, not just talking avatar, in this world. Like how do I best express myself and represent the me that I know as myself? And to this degree, it extends into the avatar too. I just don't know how businesses are going to play with that. Are they going to play nice with that? I guess time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. And there was a good message in the chat from Wojo who was saying, while depending on what the job might be, there could be requirements for the person showing up in virtual, or not in virtual space, but over a camera, depending on what the conversation is. And so, so that you're not giving out company secrets to somebody who's not who they say they are. There are all sorts of caveats, all sorts of situations where this might not be allowed. But in like huge meetings where you've got, 200 employees all tuning in, to have some of them be these digital characters instead, I think is not such a terrible idea. In any case, we'll see how this rolls out for Microsoft Teams and what people are able to do and how it all works. But I thought it was an interesting topic for the corporate side of the metaverse as we get into those things. All right, this next set of topics, it's time to go robotic. Up first is a story about Facebook. The company's FAIR, it's Facebook AI Research Group, is working on tactile technologies for robots, which is a really interesting thing. It says, as such, FAIR has centered its tactile technology research on four main areas of study: hardware, simulation, processing, and perception. And with it come this ability to use touch sensing they show a robot grabbing an egg, for example, because it can feel, I say in quotes, what it's grabbing and properly grasp it without crushing it. I mean, that's kind of one of the common ones. And I'm thinking of like all sorts of cartoons and shows where somebody gets a robotic arm or something and they go to give somebody a handshake or they try to grab the glass that they're going to drink out of and immediately they crush it. And you're going, oh no. With this, you have the ability to have the robot kind of feel what's going on. It says the technology is called Reskin, and it says the 2 to 3 millimeter thick material lasts for up to 50,000 touches while generating high frequency 3-axis tactile signals and retaining a temporal resolution of up to 400 hertz and a spatial resolution of 1 millimeter with 90% accuracy. It says once a swath of reskin reaches its usable limits, replacing the skin is as easy as taking a Band-Aid off and putting a new Band-Aid on. 100 units cost about $6 to make, so you would be able to make quite a few of them. And they show in some GIFs, I believe it's a blueberry that the robot is picking up. And with the reskin, they're able to pick up that blueberry and drop it back down without squishing it. Without the reskin, they just automatically crush that juice. They make blueberry juice. I think this is a pretty neat technology. I mean, of course, folks have a right to be a little freaked out by it because it's robots that can actually physically feel. But whenever we've got these robots doing these different jobs, to make them more able to kind of understand the physical context of what they're working with, that's only good in terms of the automation stuff that we are already working on.
Yeah, I mean, this is essential, right? In the march to make robots that are like humans, so that they can overtake us all.
Oh, you had to say march. Ugh, scary. Just imagining all these robots with skin marching toward me.
Yeah, that sentence had multiple things to be afraid of. So apologies, that was unintentional. Of course, I'm just trying to get in on the good side of robots right now, so that
right, yeah,
later. But yeah, this sort of thing is really essential, and it's not something that I've really given much thought to. Like I understand the picking up an egg problem with a robot. It's very easy to comprehend that, but how how do you get there? How do you get to replicating what we so take for granted? And I guess it kind of reminds me of some things that I've heard in the VR space, where they're also working on ways in which when we interact with a virtual object, we can feel texture and stuff. So if you rub your hands across a bumpy surface, you might get some feedback that kind of drags along your hand that's coordinated with it. And I mean, how do you replicate touch either for a robot or in this like virtual space? It's a really difficult challenge, so I'm very curious about it.
And this is, you hear these buzzwords a lot in tech presentations: AI, machine learning, computer vision. And oftentimes it seems to be a marketing method for checking the boxes for someone to go, okay, it's got the AI, it's got the ML, and it's got the CV. Bingo. But when you read about this through the Engadget article, the artificial intelligence and the machine learning aspects of it, they're actually separate things that are coming together to make this possible, because they are training a machine learning model. I guess it is a model. No, it is module. They are training this module to be able to be used by multiple people. So you've got a whole bunch of stuff coming together. You've got this actual physical, robot hand, so to speak. You've got the skin that has the sensors in it, but then you've got this module that you connect to it called PyTouch. And when PyTouch was created by training robots on what it means to feel, was just beginning to feel, actually training what it feels like, so you put different objects in the, against those pads, and you start to train it, and then the ML and the AI take off, running with that information and, go deeper with that. So I like whenever we see actual breakdowns of each of these kinds of technologies that we hear so much about as buzzwords being used in actuality, being used truly to come together to make really interesting innovations with this technology.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break before we come back with more in robotics. I do want to tell you about UserWay, who is bringing you this episode of Smart Tech Today, userway.org. Look, UserWay is amazing, and I love that Twit is working with UserWay, because I think all of us here at Twit were pretty pumped to hear about UserWay and that they were going to be advertising on the network, because every website, without exception, needs to be accessible because it's a public entity. So it's actually required. But we think it's more than that. It's not just the fact that it's a public entity. It's also because it's the right thing to do. It's federal ADA law that mandates equal access to services for all Americans. So that means that you could be liable if your website does not meet ADA laws for accessibility. UserWay comes in with an incredible AI-powered solution that tirelessly enforces the hundreds of WCAG guidelines with just one line of JavaScript. With that one line of JavaScript, UserWay can achieve more than an entire team of developers. UserWay's AI and machine learning solutions power accessibility for more than 1 million websites. It's trusted by Coca-Cola, by Disney, by eBay, by FedEx, and many other leading brands. And now, UserWay is making its best-in-class enterprise-level accessibility tools available to small and medium businesses. When you scale, you need UserWay. An accessible and compliant website isn't only the right thing to do, it also makes business sense. The Achilles heel for websites are registration forms and nav menus and shopping carts that are not accessible. Millions of people will require UserWay just to purchase your products. For years, UserWay has been on the cutting edge, creating innovative accessibility technologies that push the envelope of what's possible with AI, machine learning, and computer vision. UserWay's AI automatically fixes violations at the code level. And if you're curious, here are just some of the things that UserWay does. It auto-generates image alts. That's those image descriptions, which it's going to write for you. It remediates complex nav menus and ensures that all pop-ups are accessible. It fixes vague link violations and fixes any broken links. And it ensures your website makes use of accessible colors. And get this, it does that while remaining true to your brand. It also gives you a detailed report of all the violations that were fixed on your website. And don't worry if you're coming in from a platform, you may think, oh, I don't know if it's going to work for me. UserWay is platform agnostic. So whether you're using WordPress, Shopify, or Wix, UserWay is cost-effective and easy to add. And the same goes for AEM, Sitecore, or SharePoint. UserWay integrates seamlessly with all. Let UserWay help your business meet its compliance goals and improve the experience for your users. Check out their free scanning tool to see if your website is ADA compliant. Also, the voice of Siri, who's considered the world's most popular voice assistant, has a message about UserWay.
UserWay is trusted by more than 1 million websites and 60 million users with disabilities. Visit userway.org to learn how one line of code can make your website accessible.
UserWay can make any website fully accessible and ADA compliant. With UserWay, everyone who visits your site can browse seamlessly and customize it to fit their needs. It's also a perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. So go to userway.org/twit and get 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. UserWay, making the internet accessible for everyone. Visit userway.org/twit today. Thanks so much to UserWay for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. Let's head back into the bots. All right, this next one is an interesting story about Miso Robotics. So Miso, you may be familiar with miso soup. And as you might imagine then, this company makes food robots that are able to make food in an automated process. So Miso Robotics had a robot that they named Flippy, and they used it in some White Castle restaurants and sort of tested it out to see what worked, what didn't, and Flippy needed a whole lot of intervention from actual human beings. And so they decided what they wanted to do was improve upon the technology such that they didn't need as much human intervention. Employee feedback and the data that they gathered the whole time helped them create Flippy 2, which not only doesn't need human intervention, but also is much faster at doing its job. So Flippy 2 comes along and helps create food. It says apparently one of the main things Miso learned from the pilot was that human assistance was still needed on both sides during operation. Since basket management wasn't automated, human employees would still need to help load the uncooked product and unload the cooked food in the holding area. Now it has an auto bin system so that will let you let them kind of automatically have these baskets ready to go, ready to be cooked, and ready to move on to the next step. So this closed loop system, it says it can increase the kitchen's throughput by around 60 baskets per hour. This is where I think this is a conversation about robots, pretty cool, but also the future of employment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Big time. I mean, yeah, so it sounds like the Flippy 2, right, like with the Flippy 1, What a name. I love it, actually. It kind of sounds like it should be flipping pancakes as opposed to fry baskets. But
yeah, or flipping burgers.
Yeah, or flipping burgers. Oh, yeah, that would be cool too. It's a cool concept. At least with Flippy 1, it did require some human intervention because
we kind of were like, let's do that one.
We can kind of keep people employed. I mean, this system, they said, the AI is identifying the ingredients, it's placing them in the right fry basket, it's placing that in the oil and cooking the food, and then placing the cooked food into a holding area. So it's really doing just so much here. I suppose. I'm envisioning at some point in the future there is going to be a fast food restaurant that makes its name, or that really is able to stand out and say, we are the first fast food restaurant that is 100% robotic. And you go in there and the entire kitchen is run by robots, and even more importantly, the register that you walk up to is like a robot that takes your order and communicates it all around. It's cool in theory, but I can't help but fall onto the very standard trope, that's attached to robotics like this, which is, dang, but the workers, right? Like, and folks who would work in restaurants like this might not have a whole lot of other really great options, for that work. And so what does this do for them? Where do they end up going? I suppose it means that it paves the way for them requiring new skills that, in a future world where robots are running the fast food restaurants, they would undoubtedly, hopefully, have the ability to garner those skills, but I can't help but just kind of be a little disappointed in that future also.
It also made me think about the folks. I kind of like, can you imagine being one of the employees who had to work next to this robot and provide feedback? I know if I was in that position, I'd be like, this thing just doesn't work at all.
Right.
I'm sorry.
There's all the ways that's wrong.
Yeah, this is bad. This is, the thing that worries me about this is kind of not just on the face of it, what we're talking about here, but it also starts to make you look to some of these sci-fi films and sci-fi shows that we've seen where you have these situations of, a group of human beings who their role in government is to make sure that X or Y amount of jobs go to actual human beings versus to robots. And you start to have like human rights versus robotic rights. And that is, I wonder how far off we are from some sort of human advocacy in terms of the ability to work at these places. And the problem with that you see in these shows is the human workers simply aren't able to work as fast. 60 baskets per hour or more, and they're being compared to those robots.
Yep.
It's tough.
It's an impossible standard. It's an impossible standard for a human worker to be compared against the high efficiency, high output, machines of the future side by side. And to a certain degree, the development of robots that do these things, it feels like there's not a whole lot of like the cat's already out of the bag. Like, right. Of course they're going to develop these things. Like, I don't know what stands in their way of not developing them. The only, other than some sort of regulation that said you can't create systems that, make your business faster by using robots, which is incredibly unlikely to happen. So it just kind of, it's kind of a bleak future for I think employment in certain industries like this, because it seems like it's just the natural progression of the way things are going, and we really need to be thinking about the humans that are attached to this stuff too.
Yep. Well, we can't talk about humans because we're still talking about robots, unfortunately. No, but this one's I applaud. I applaud this robotics work. The University of Adelaide made a robot spider in the interest of scanning Australia's, I'm going to go with Naracoorte caves, and I'm probably very wrong. But these are caves that are a World Heritage Site, and so it's protected. And because of that, folks aren't able to, only certain groups of people, researchers and folks like that are able to go into this area because they don't want to erode it with human involvement. So they made a robot that can climb through the caves and create a 3D scan of the site. Apparently, the group went through 15 iterations of the Cave X robot, and it walks on a set of, so it's not quite a spider because it walks on a set of 6 legs. So I guess it's an insect. And it uses these very small sort of points at the end of the leg to move around in the space and not damage the stalactites, stalagmites, and prehistoric fossils. And then they're able to create these 3D scans so that they can see what's going on in the caves, and they hope to make some new discoveries there. This is very cool in terms of robotics, and they want to combine, I mean, because you can think about, again, how these technologies come together. You've got the robotics that can go in and do less damage than a human being, but then you combine that with these scans they're taking that you plug into a computer vision program that can identify areas where there are fossils that the human eye may not have been able to detect. There's all of these implications for the way that this could be used, and I think that part is what makes this so cool.
Yeah, when the resolution of that vision just continues to increase and increase on something like this. I mean, at a certain point, like this is a spider, walking robot, trouncing through the caves. I tried to look up the pronunciation, by the way. Naracoorte is what I came back.
Oh, it was much simpler.
Naracoorte. But I could be wrong there too. But anyways, this is a spider, trouncing through the caves, which leaves less of an impact than if, say, humans were going through there. But at a certain point, I could imagine, drones mapping these things and staying in the air and doing even less potential, impact on the area. But I think this is really cool. And this also, but touching on our previous conversation, this doesn't seem on its surface to really put anyone out of business either.
Right.
Putting anyone out of work, right? Like this allows them to navigate potentially into places that humans couldn't actually fit into. And it's also safer for humans. It's safer than sending humans into these places. So yeah, I'm all for it.
All sorts of good here. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk, as loyal listeners of the show will know, let's talk about one of my favorite companies. It's time to talk about the complainer that is Sonos. You probably don't know, Jason, but I have Sonos, as you may know, in the past had a set of speakers that they said, hey, these are kind of at their end of life. And so we will help you out. You recycle them by sending them into us, and we will give you kind of a discount, so to speak, on newer Sonos products. But originally, if you went through the process, then it completely bricked the device and you couldn't use it after that. You had to send it in. And then Sonos started to become really peeved about the fact that its products couldn't be used with multiple smart assistants, which is understandable. It wanted to be able to let you say, hey G, or hey AL, or not even the hey part, but ALEXA, or hey SIRI, and be able to communicate with those assistants on the Sonos. Allegedly, Google was one of the holdouts there. That Amazon was going to be okay with that, but Google was one of the holdouts there, and I imagine Apple as well, though they didn't mention that part. But then the company got upset because Apple made it possible for devices that were third-party devices to be able to communicate with Siri. So the thing that they said they wanted to do on theirs, they were upset that Apple had enabled this technology. So this company bugs me because it's a little hypocritical in its desire to complain about certain aspects of an open smart home and then go against that open smart home. Now Sonos appears to be working on its own voice control, voice assistant. And this is something that's been rumored for quite a while. And we kind of hadn't heard about it for a while as the company kind of spent its time complaining and filing antitrust complaints and whatnot. But now it appears to be working on its own assistant. According to this protocol article, the code snippets were posted this week by a Reddit user. These were snippets from the Sonos app, who was also able to unearth the assistant's icon, a speech bubble not too dissimilar from the one used by Amazon's Alexa assistant. So it says that the assistant can be activated in addition to Alexa, so that Sonos owners can use, either the assistant or specific wake words aside from what voice assistants they were using otherwise. Now, this is the part that's interesting. Protocol, again, quote, Google has long insisted that technical issues prevent it from running Google Assistant in addition to another voice assistant. But Sonos executives have rejected that claim and alleged that Google's voice assistant policies are anti-competitive. And that is where the kind of back and forth goes on. So now it seems like Sonos is just going to use its own voice assistant instead of playing ball with these other companies. Honestly, I'm on board with Sonos creating its own voice assistant and letting people just use that one with its devices versus this kind of ongoing, we can't use all of these that we want to, and so we're just crossing our arms and complaining about it. It's like, good, you've created your own now. Now people can use it. And that's, I think, kind of where the focus should have been in the first place. But I don't know. Do you have any Sonos devices? And I'm curious if you have like a mixed assistant home, or if everything's Google Assistant in yours.
Yeah, I mean, primarily throughout our house, we have Google Home devices in almost every room. So that's kind of what we're locked into, is the Google experience. In our garage, over the pandemic, it was converted into my voice is going. Over the pandemic, my wife and I converted the garage into her gym where she works out of now. She takes clients there. And she has a Sonos device from her previous business in San Francisco that's now in the garage. So we do have a Sonos device. I don't really have a whole lot of interaction with it. It's pretty much primarily just the assistant devices. I find it really interesting that it seems like every device in the world seems to work with Alexa and Assistant. So I guess I don't quite understand exactly why Sonos device can't. But at the end of the day, like, if a voice assistant is just use your voice to control this device and it works, then I don't really care who's heading it, as long as it's not confusing to me. As long as I don't have to do the advanced trigonometry to remember, like, I'm using that device, therefore I need to use this string of syntaxes versus this other kind of set. That's where things get confusing for me.
Yep, I agree. I think that's more the consideration that we have to make is it easy for the end user? I don't care which of the assistants I'm talking to. I just don't want to have to think about that process. And I agree that it does seem like a lot of the virtual assistants, the two from Google and from Amazon, do work on a lot of devices. I think the thing that Google was saying is that it's not technologically feasible for the Amazon Assistant and the Google Assistant to be running at the same time. But that's where I say, that's fine that you feel that way, Google. Let Sonos sort of make that determination on there. If they want to claim that you can run both at the same time, then maybe let them try to see if that works, versus Google just kind of saying, that's not possible, so you can't do it. I mean, maybe it is possible, so maybe they should try it. And if it fails miserably, I guess that's where Google is, worried that it would bounce back and say, it's the Google Assistant that's not working.
Right.
It's the the Amazon Assistant. It's got to protect its own brand.
It's all about control is what that smacks to me, because I'm sure it's probably possible, but then at the same time, the end user might not be so aware as far as like what the problem is behind the scenes when you have multiple voice assistants working at the same time, and who do they blame and for what reason? Yeah, it's got to be about control and protection. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Up next, we've got some smart tech with automotive stuff, automotive vehicles. All right. Up first in smart auto, I wanted to talk. I saw this flyby on Twitter. The CEO, the co-founder and CTO of this company called Cruise had tweeted a series of tweets about going in a fully driverless robotaxi on the streets of San Francisco. And so I read through these series of tweets and was like, wait, what? This is happening now? Cruise, which is it's the self-driving subsidiary of General Motors, of GM. It started its actual autonomous driving in San Francisco. And just last night, November 3rd, 2021, was the first time that there's been it was Monday night, so that would have been a couple of days ago. Anyway, a few days ago. Point is, earlier this week, for the first time in San Francisco, there was a completely driverless taxi situation that happened. Before, of course, Cruise had done this taxiing system where there was a driver there was a human being either in the driver's seat or the passenger seat. But this time, Kyle Vogt, we'll go with that. The CTO, went on his phone and said, hey, I want to ride. And the Cruise vehicle came over with no one in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, pulled over and waited. He got into the back. And the car, made sure he was in the car and then took him to his destination, wherever it happened to be. And it did all of that without there being any humans sort of piloting it, making it go the way that it was supposed to go. This is, while the CTO got to be the first one, it says that employees of the company will be the first to get to do these drives. It says certain members of the public will also be able to ride, but they won't be charged a fare. I wish I was one of these certain members of the public because I really want to try this. It sounded really interesting, really fun as the story kind of unfolded, the way that the car went and, was driving along and how it stopped, and it was in ghost mode, I believe is what they called it, which was when it was just driving around waiting for someone to pick it up, to call it out and ask for a ride. It said he requested 5 rides throughout the night. And the rides had to be at night because according to the stipulations of Cruise's driverless deployment permit, which is what the California Department of Motor Vehicles gave them, it can only operate driverless between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. and at a max speed of 30 miles per hour. They got this permit in early October, and those rules were set in place. I am not surprised that it was General Motors who was able to actually get this to happen, that leading up to this, there wasn't the situation, that there wasn't anybody else who kind of had this in place, that it kind of took that huge name of General Motors to be able to get this completely driverless permit in San Francisco. But Jason, would you take a driverless ride?
I think I would. Yeah, I probably would. There's a little bit of hesitancy there, of course, but hey, why not? I'd also jump out of an airplane, and skydive if I had the opportunity. And a lot of people wouldn't do that because they'd feel that would be unsafe. So yeah, I suppose I'd take that chance. I do think it's funny that, I understand the between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. kind of limit for this. But I think it's hilarious that that's like prime time, like bars / nightclubs / whatever, people in very altered states, are the ones that are
Yeah.
going to be putting this to the test.
Yeah.
And that could end up being really hilarious or a total tragedy. I'm not really quite sure, but I think it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious how this is going, what the next step is from here, how the company is going to open this up to more folks or fewer folks, and how long they have this kind of limitation on it just being employees of Cruise and, quote, certain members of the public, unquote.
Right.
And then from there, what are the fares going to be like whenever there is the full ability to drive these? It says Cruise has yet to apply for the final permit it needs, which would be from the California Public Utilities Commission to be able to charge for robotaxi services. So that's why only Cruise employees and non-paying members of the public are able to drive this. It says it doesn't break out numbers for how many driverless AVs are permitted, nor does it have an update on when it expects to apply for its final permit. So we'll have to wait and see.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it says that Cruise wouldn't say kind of who would qualify to ride in the AVs right now. But yeah, I think this
must
is
be drunk. In
Yeah.
order to ride, you have to blow into an blood alcohol
breathalyzer.
thing.
Yeah.
And you can only ride in one if your blood alcohol level is above 0.8. And that's the restriction.
Must be.
Because then you're less likely to like scrutinize it and be like, oh, I don't know, be all hesitant and everything. You're like, let's do it.
I don't like how it accelerated over that little stretch of road. Exactly. You're just like, this is fun.
This is amazing. I would totally do this again.
All right, this next story is, we're staying in vehicles. I believe this is a technology that's available in certain Pixel phones. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but Apple is reportedly working on a feature that will detect car crashes and then auto dial 911 in the United States. Apparently, same with the Apple Watch. So it's been working, according to the Wall Street Journal, the company has been working for some time on this feature and plans for it to debut in 2022, according to company documents related to the matter, which would essentially detect that you were in a car crash and then call 911 to provide, safety services. We had talked about Google's version of this on Smart Tech Today a few episodes back, where the phone, as part of you'll have to tell me in a moment, as part of an app that Jason will mention in a second, would, along with calling services, also record with video what it could see in the scene to provide some more information and then send that video to your trusted contacts or your safety contacts. So can you tell me about the way that it works on the Pixel devices and what the app is?
Yeah, so the app is called Personal Safety, and I'm just firing up my overhead camera. I didn't have it going. But so this is like, this is just setting up the personal safety area, but they actually have a demo. It's the car crash detection. You can see and hear what happens when your phone detects a crash. So if it detected a crash, the phone would show this car crash detected, calling 911 to report a crash in, and then it would count down. In the meantime, I would have the ability.
Crash detected.
Whoa.
Say emergency to call 911 now. Otherwise, say cancel.
Emergency.
You said emergency. Calling 911 now.
And then it would place the call, which it's not doing. This is just a total demo, and then it ends up communicating to 911 the location data of where you are, kind of a little bit of a summary. And I believe the phone still provides information for someone who might intercept me if I was at an accident site, that sort of thing. And so this has been a feature on the Pixel phones now. I want to say maybe a year and a half, not a super long time, but a little bit of time. It's kind of nice to have that running on there to know that, just peace of mind sort of thing.
Agreed. Yeah, I think this is a really good feature regardless of what platform you're on, because some cars have this built in, but it was often an extra that you had to add to be able to have it. And so the more people who have access to this technology, I think the better. And I like that the app had that preview of how it works, because that's one of the things, like, a lot of people know, or many people know, that there's a way to access emergency services with their device and with their iPhone, and, you know, like tapping the side button 5 times, or I think they brought it up to 8 now, or squeezing all of the buttons for a period of time. But you don't know what that looks like, what that experience looks like, until you do it.
Sorry, I had to try tapping my button 5 times to see what happened, and apparently I have the same thing. No, don't call emergency number. Oh. Boy. Whew, it works.
See, that's like the only way to test it on an iPhone. You don't even know what it looks like unless you try it. But you don't want to try it because you don't want to accidentally contact emergency services. So I like that they show you so that you know that because I would be worried that I'm in an emergency situation and then did I do it right? Is right. What's showing up on the phone what I expect? So just having that knowledge of what it looks like would be good.
Oh boy, those sirens, they shot through my bones. Like I felt those sirens.
I was getting nervous
horrific.
over here.
Yes. Yeah. They gave me a little anxiety just hearing the boop, boop.
I thought you were playing some kind of game though.
It did sound a little pinball.
I'm sorry. Anyways,
are you playing pinball again?
I win.
All right. Let's do the last bit of vehicle news. This is another bit of self-driving autonomous car research. This is from researchers in Australia from the University of Sydney's Australian Centre for Field Robotics, who kind of came to the realization that, hey, we could make self-driving and autonomous vehicle technology so much better if these cars or vehicles, whatever they happen to be, were able to communicate with one another and communicate with a sensor array, what they call intelligent roadside units. And so these intelligent roadside units would be equipped with LiDAR sensors, with all sorts of different sensors, and then also be able to communicate with other cars in the vicinity to use their sensors to vastly improve upon the ability to drive without running into human beings, without basically, going and accidentally causing an accident. So, I mean, on the face of it, this is an incredibly obvious kind of thing where, yes, of course, if there's more data available to the cars, then they're going to be able to, quote unquote, see better. But this collaborative perception idea actually being kind of broken down and showing the difference between the two, how much it can work to improve upon the uncertainties, that makes it better. And they show kind of how much better it can be. So, yeah, I think this is a cool idea, whether it is these roadside units that you could eventually picture being installed as part of like a self-driving car future, or just networked vehicles where you can use multiple vehicles on the road to know that there's a cyclist behind this this vehicle that's coming this way. The car that is going the opposite way would be aware of the fact that the cyclist is there, even though it itself cannot see with its sensors that there's a cyclist there. Seems like a good idea.
This seems inevitable to me. If what you're working, if what they're working for is a truly autonomous roads everywhere, I think in order to alleviate anyone's like concerns of safety and stuff, when you're already scanning for this information from vehicle to vehicle, it only makes sense for that data to be shared between the vehicles. And maybe anonymously, maybe there's some way to do that in a way that adheres more closely to keeping things private and not overstepping any boundaries. But if that vehicle knows that there's a bicyclist that I don't see, and why? It just makes sense to me that they would be able to at some point communicate that to each other and keep everybody even more safe than they could otherwise.
Yep. All right, let's move on to some different gadgets and gizmos. The first one is, I hadn't considered this as an option for consumers directly.
Yeah, neither did I.
But yeah, one consumer company out there was thinking about it. Arlo has an LTE camera that can capture 1080p footage and is far less expensive than its original model. The original model was quite pricey and was 720p. This new one is, and I've lost my page here. This new one costs less and has LTE built into it, so you can get it for $250.
$250.
There it is. And think of this. So interestingly, the Engadget article and Arlo itself kind of markets this as a device for. In fact, they show like a camping van out in the middle of nowhere. They've taken the camera and put it up on a tree to kind of watch over the campsite. I see this more as LTE being a backup system for if the Wi-Fi at your home goes out, if the internet goes out at your home while you're away, that you could still get access to your camera to be able to check in on things while you're gone or get notified if there's motion inside of your home. They do, I mean, it's called the Go too. They market it as a device that you kind of take with you and put places. But yeah, I don't really see it as that. I think that it's an excellent idea as a backup option for a wireless security camera. And it also would work in instances where your Wi-Fi network doesn't reach. Maybe you have a detached garage or a detached shed that has its own kind of area on your property that's far away. To be able to have it there and keep a connection to your internet through LTE is quite nice. So yeah, I think this is a pretty cool idea and something I would consider if I was in a situation where I couldn't kind of connect to the camera otherwise. Oh, and I forgot to mention it also has GPS tracking built into it. So if you do bring it camping and some bear wanders off with it, you could track it down via GPS. Although I think any park ranger would tell you, if a bear has your camera, you've lost your camera.
It's not your camera anymore.
It's not your camera anymore. That's the bear's camera.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is a whole category that I had never really considered. We do a lot of camping, in the summers, and I'm just like thinking, would I ever feel compelled to like set up a security camera at my campsite? And I just, no, you know what? It's cool. I have trust that no one's gonna wander off with something from my campsite. I feel like if you're pulling out a security camera and hitching it up on your campsite, I don't know. It almost makes you more of a target.
I agree. It's like, oh boy, look at that silly person there.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I just feel obligated to circumvent the camera and take something from this campsite. Like, you have challenged me. You've dropped the gauntlet. No, I get it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, come on, you're camping. This is not
it's cool.
You bringing your indoors outdoors.
Last time I went camping, a bunch of birds stole my bread.
Oh, see? If you had this camera, you could find those birds.
Exactly.
You could get back. Yeah.
Oh, my word. Yeah, so I like this idea again, because different companies have come up with different ways of different bands of networking to try to reach longer distances and networking devices together, like what Amazon does with Amazon Sidewalk. But this specifically, LTE, which is already, everywhere, is a great idea for being able to connect to the camera. All right.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of more news stories to hit in just a moment, and then we'll round things out with some questions and our picks of the week. All right. A couple of cooking stories here. I wanted to mention, I know Leo Laporte is very fond of his smart grill from Traeger. Well, now on top of having just a smart grill, I probably shouldn't mention this because I'm pretty sure Lisa and Leo are back from vacation. So if Leo tunes in, then he's going to end up subscribing to this. It's called Provisions, and it is a subscription service for your smart grill. What is it? Well, with Traeger Provisions, you can get a box that has the meats and the sauces and the seasonings and everything that you need to make the perfect barbecue meal with your smart grill. So it helps you kind of take care of everything that you need to make sure you pop it into the grill just as you want and come out with the perfect cooked barbecue afterward. And honestly, I have to say, this is a pretty smart idea. I think that it gets into the range of being a little goofy in terms of you've already got the smart grill. You want like this too. It's like buying ink cartridges for your printer almost. But if you read more about the Provisions site, they are sourcing top quality meats. They are sourcing top quality sauces and ingredients from different places. So it's not just Traeger mass manufactured, beef from the nearby beef packing plant that they find. They really are sourcing like top quality stuff throughout the whole process so that when you see that recipe and you order it, you're going to get this really delicious meal at the end of it. And I think that there truly is a future where we have like 3D printers in our home. And I type in, I want, I don't know, chicken cacciatore or whatever, and it makes that meal for me right there on my desk. I don't know if I'll ever see that, if you and I will ever see that, but I think that somewhere down the line, that's going to be a real thing. And I think that this kind of touches on that, where you've got a device that has the smarts in it needed to, after it's been tested time and time again, to figure out what the perfect temperature is, the perfect heat, the perfect time, and you supply it with premium ingredients, and then you add those things together, and then you get this really delicious meal. So, yeah, I think this Provisions idea is pretty cool.
I mean, a feast. So I'm looking at the Heritage Black Turkey Feast, in advance of Thanksgiving here in the U.S. A feast for 8 to 10 people is $250. That's $25 a person. If you're having 18 to 20 people over, it's $350. Comes out to $18 a person. You get the turkey. You get 3 of the side dishes, rubs, sauces, and extras, to satisfy everybody sitting at your gigantic table if you've got 20 people there. That seems like pretty fair price if you're
yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe it's actually a little expensive. I don't know. I've never made food for 20 people, but still sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty easy.
Especially if you can afford the Traeger smart grill in the first place. I think this is in your price range.
Yeah, totally.
And then the other bit of smart food news is I just got an email from GE, and it was it made me laugh. But then I thought, you know what? The number of times that I've seen people goof about how they messed up on cooking a turkey, this is another smart idea. If you've got a GE smart oven and some other GE appliances, certain GE appliances, they are rolling out a software update that includes a button called Turkey Mode. And this can either be via the app or via the oven itself if you've got one that's got a screen on it. And what you do is these ovens and appliances have a built-in probe area. So you plug in the probe into the oven, and then you plug the other end into a cold turkey that's in a roaster pan. You close the oven, and you simply push the Turkey Mode button, and then it perfectly cooks your turkey.
Bada bing, bada boom.
That's it. It's a turkey mode.
Here's what I don't understand on this, though, because it says, what did it say? At least the article basically said, like, you don't need to do any basting, no stuffing, no brining, no fiddling with foil, blah, blah, blah. The bird cooks itself, but that sounds like a really bland bird. Like some of the stuff you want to do with it, that's what brings the flavor to it. So
yeah, I disagree with. So that was kind of in the article. I disagree with that part because even in its own photo, it shows a turkey that's got all the stuff in and around it. I would make the turkey how I want it. I would stuff it how I want it. Put the stuff around it that I want. I'd stick that probe in there, and then boom, turkey mode to cook it. Because all it's doing ultimately is cooking over a period of time and at the right temperatures to properly roast the turkey to get it to that internal temperature. I imagine it's not just blasting it with the highest amount of heat until it reaches the internal temperature it needs. It's doing it at a perfect time.
Yeah. Technically, it's cooked. But is it yummy?
Exactly.
That's the other question.
It says the food scientist at GE that helped make this, their team cooked hundreds of turkeys to perfect the algorithm, and she's confident your turkey will turn out just as perfectly juicy and crispy as the one they showed the author of this article in the demo. So yeah, hundreds of turkeys were cooked to try to find the perfect cooking time and temperature, etc. for this recipe. All right, let's head into the feedback section real quick. It might have been last week, might have been a few weeks ago. Samuel wrote in asking about the best Wi-Fi extension for their home and was saying, should I get something that plugs into the wall? Should I get a Wi-Fi extender or a Wi-Fi repeater, et cetera, et cetera? And I suggested that Samuel look into Mocha adapters, which is a way to carry internet over coaxial cable. A lot of homes are wired for cable from a time whenever the cable person came into their home and wired their home for that, and including rental properties. And somebody had the brilliant idea of, we can use those wires to send Ethernet at top speeds over that connection versus using phone line, which is going to drop the speeds, or power line, which I really don't recommend because of all the feedback that ends up taking place there. Recently, my partner started working from home on certain days, and also we got some more gadgets in the living room that needed to have an Ethernet connection. And before, it was just temporary, so we just run an Ethernet cable downstairs from the office for that period of time, a couple of hours or whatever, every once in a blue moon. Now it's enough that I needed to have some Ethernet downstairs, and so I got some Mocha adapters and set them up, and it was great how easy it was to do. You basically just plug one side of the Mocha adapter into your own Ethernet. I plugged it into a switch that has a bunch of other stuff plugged into it. And then it goes into the cable, and then it comes out downstairs with the cable that's in the wall and plugs into the other Mocha adapter. And then from there, the Ethernet cable runs into a switch that I can then connect a bunch of different stuff to. Samuel responded to say, I'm happy to say that I did follow the suggestion you made on the air, and I went with direct cable connection for my Wi-Fi extension problem. Now I don't have any delay nor spinning wheel to worry about. Keep up doing a great job for us. Thank you. You're very welcome, Samuel. We appreciate you for writing in with your thoughts there.
And I'm just looking on Camel right now on the link that you have to the 2-pack, and it's at its lowest price that it's ever been on Amazon right now at $160 for the 2-pack.
Oh, snap. Now's the time.
Something to consider. Yeah. It's normally hovering around at $180. It looks like for much of this year, and then prior to that around $200. So $160 right now. Not bad.
Yeah, hop on that. It can go up to 2.5 gigabits, which I never have because it's a 1 gigabit max connection. So it works very well. All right, let us move into our picks of the week. Jason, you are the guest, so you can begin.
Yeah, well, since this is smart tech today, I was like, what's a smart tech thing that I can bring here? And I learned about this yesterday. Well, actually, no, I learned about this probably like 4 or 5 days ago, but we talked about it yesterday on This Week in Google, is that if you want basically a free Gen 2 Nest Hub, you can get one if you sign up for Google One, their 2 terabyte annual plan, which basically 2 terabytes is it's like $99. It's basically $100 a year. So you break that down into 12 months or whatever, but you pay up front, I think, the $100 for the year. And if you do that, you get 2 terabytes of cloud storage. You get a couple of other Google services perks, but then you're able to redeem for a free 2nd gen Nest Hub, which isn't a bad deal if you're still looking to increase the cloud storage that you have with Google. Maybe want to start backing up more stuff to the cloud, or maybe this is your next step. I'm on the on the 200 gig plan, which is $3 a month. And I think the next step up, if I'm not mistaken, is this. But I don't really need to go there yet, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
I'm impressed that you don't need to go there.
Not yet. I can put it off for a little while longer.
I thought for sure by now you would be there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between $3 and I think like 10-ish. Well,
yeah,
actually, if it's $100 a year and there's 12 months, so then it's probably like $8. So it's like a $5 difference per month. Anyways, I don't know.
Is it like a family? Is it a family thing? So everybody's storage is there? Or is it just yours?
Just mine. Just
okay.
Storage
that makes more sense. Okay,
account.
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
On the Apples, on my side, I've got I have a family plan that I let members of my family use so that they can, instead of having to pay for their own storage, they can just use my storage because I've got plenty of space. But because of that, I had to have more than 200. I had to bring it up. Now, is the second gen the current generation, or is that?
Yeah, I believe that is the current generation Nest Hub. Gen 2 is the current one that they're featuring.
Oh, nice.
And this also has the sleep tracking capability that they have yet to have the service for. And actually, I'm going to the Google site right now, and it looks like they have the second gen Nest Hub on sale for $50. So apparently they're trying to unload these things. Yeah, save $50 on one right now, so you could get one outright for $50. But not bad. If you need cloud storage, I mean, though, and you're going to get that anyways, you might as well get the free Nest Hub with it.
Very cool. Very cool. Mine's a simple one this week. This one happens to be $13.99, but they come at all different prices. I just want to remind people that with LED light strips, the package you get does not have to be the extent of what you can do with those light strips. In fact, many of them will have printed on there a little scissors icon where you can cut them, and you might think, oh, now that I've cut it, I'm done. That was my fear at first. And then I started to realize that there are all of these kits, these connector kits that you can buy that let you make them run at right angles, that let you connect multiple strips together, that let you extend areas if you want to. And so I have linked up to a $13.99 kit, an LED strip light connector kit. The one thing that you need to be aware of is how many pins your LED light strip has. Matthew and I have in the past recommended the Meros light strips, and that's because they're really price conscious. They also work with HomeKit, and these are 4-pin. And so I have a 4-pin connector kit, and this actually comes with a few little connectors with it. But depending on what you get, some of the Philips Hue ones and, for example, these Nanoleaf ones, if it has RGB, W, and WW, which stands for red, green, blue, white, and warm white, then you're going to have between 5 and 6 pins. So be aware with your light strip how many pins you're going to need. And then from there, you'll be able to pick the proper connectors that you need for those. With that, now, and you also need to be mindful that light strips only can extend so far. So you can't have one power adapter connected to 5 of these very long light strips. The package will typically tell you somewhere, or online, it'll tell you kind of how many you can do per. But this was just I was cutting it shorter than it came and needing to route some things. And so the connector kit was very handy and giving me all sorts of options for wrapping them around things and running them under and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you're in the process of adding some light strips to your home and you don't want to just awkwardly bend them to wrap them around a television or something like that, then you can get the right angle connectors, and that will let you cut and place them just how you need them. Pretty neat little thing. And they come in all sorts of prices too. $13.99 was the one, like I said, that I showed you that had a whole bunch. But depending on what you want, if you just need some right angles, those can be even less expensive. Just type in I would do light strip connector kit to find what you're looking for. All right. Cool. This brings us to the end of this episode of Smart Tech Today. Of course, you can email us, stt@twit.tv. You can join us live by going to twit.tv/live every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, or by going to twit.tv/stt, where you can subscribe to the show in its various formats. You just click subscribe to audio or subscribe to video and choose the version that you want. Jason Howell, thank you for joining me today. If folks want to follow you online and check out your other shows, where do they go to do so?
Well, if you want to find me online, probably Twitter is the best place to go, @Jason Howell. And then, other shows in the network, of course. Tech News Weekly with you, Micah, every Thursday. All About Android every Tuesday. We'll talk about Android. Big surprise. Just doing shows on the network. And then, the last couple of weeks, Leo's been out of town. So you and I fill in for him when he's gone. So I've been doing This Week in Google and Security Now and keep him pretty busy. Yes, indeed. If you would like to support us directly, a great way to do that is by checking out Club Twit. For $7 a month, you get access to all of Twitch shows completely ad-free. You get your own little feed that has the different shows. All of the feeds are separated, and you can get all the shows with no ads. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has content you won't find anywhere else, outtakes, before the show, after the show, etc., and access to the members-only Discord server, where you can hang out with us at Twit and also your fellow Club Twit members. And, of course, the best thing, which is that warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that you are supporting our shows and supporting the creation of these media items we put together. I don't know where I was going with that. Just head to twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month to check it out. And if you are on Apple Podcasts, well, we heard that some folks wanted to just support their specific shows directly, didn't really want that extra stuff that comes with Club Twit. For $2.99, you can subscribe to any of the Twitch shows in Apple Podcasts, and you'll get an ad-free version of the audio feed there. I can be found at Micah Sargent on many a social media network if you're looking for me, or by going to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you for tuning in to Smart Tech Today. I will be back next week with Matthew Casanelli, and we appreciate you for tuning in to yet another episode. Goodbye. Android is constantly evolving, and if you're part of the Android faithful, then you'll be just as excited about it as I am. I'm Jason Howell, host of All About Android, along with my co-hosts Florence Ion and Ron Richards, where every week we cover the news, we cover the hardware, and we cover the apps that are driving the Android ecosystem. Plus, we invite people who are writing about Android, talking about Android, and making Android onto the show. Every Tuesday at twit.tv, look for All About Android.